Welcome to MOTS, where we'll be applying the Manzer or Mosi Thurlow scale of quantitative analysis of pop culture narrative through a binary system.
MOTS!
This podcast contains spoilers, mature content, and language. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome back to Bone Mots. This is Oscar season, so we're here talking about the critically acclaimed film La La Land. I am joined tonight joined by Lou Duran.
Good evening.
Chris Morgan.
Hello.
And Scott Thurlow.
Hello.
And my name is Steve-O. And we're going to start off by going to Scott for our funny logline.
All right, so we did sort of precastly just real quick discuss a bunch, but I came up with this. This is my reference to encapsulate this movie. Fret for your latte and fret for your car and fret for your pilot. It's a bullshit three-wing circus sideshow. That's what I've got in the spirit of the movie itself.
All right, fair enough. And for our short synopsis, we're going to go to Chris.
Okay, it's a takeoff on the Hollywood musicals of yesteryear. So it's boy meets girl, girl and boy sing and dance, and then girl and boy move on.
All right.
Yep.
Sounds good. We're going to start off.
Sing.
There's a lot of singing. Not as much as I thought.
No.
That's true.
But I will. But we're going to start off with the intro with Scott.
All right. So it begins with a shot of LA traffic, like almost gridlock traffic, and inexplicably people got it. I'll speak about this later, but people, it's for the first 2 minutes or so. It's a realistic thing. People are stuck in traffic, and then everyone who is stuck in traffic gets out of their cars and starts singing a song about that. Or maybe not, whatever. Like, I actually don't remember what they were singing about, because that's what this kind of movie does to me. But everyone gets out of their cars on the freeway, and the LA Expressway, and does a musical number, enacts a musical number. Yeah. And so then we follow, like, within that, there's Emma Stone is in her car, and Ryan Gosling drives past her, like they're in traffic, and she's not moving. She's practicing for a part. She's reading from her script and trying to memorize her lines. He drives past her, they flip each other off, or one of them flips the other off. He goes back basically to his shitty apartment, is berated by his sister for basically trying to follow his dreams of reenacting jazz and like sort of bringing jazz back. That's his interest. She's trying to be an actress, auditioning for parts. She, I think, works as a barista, like right off one of the movie lots. It doesn't matter. So they're doing those sort of like, the struggling artists in LA, essentially dream, one actress, one musician. And then they run into each other, or he's playing like a horrible, like little gig, playing Christmas. It starts off in winter, like the screen title says winter in LA. I assume it's LA at least. So he's playing like dive music, like traditional, just boring Christmas music in a shitty dive bar, like a dead bar. She Emma Stone is roommates with I'm assuming a bunch of other up-and-coming aspiring actresses who are trying to like attend parties and so forth to get noticed and get their name out there, blah, blah, blah. She clearly is not as into it as they are. She ends up leaving a party, going to the dive bar that Ryan Gosling is playing at, and he clearly gets so fed up with having to play the same Christmas music over and over, starts playing his jazz stuff, gets fired, has an altercation with his boss, storms out, and she is sort of enraptured. She listens like the last part of his song as he's improvising, like jazz style, so like I said, is awed by it and is impressed, is going to sort of compliment him, but Ryan Gosling storms past her, in fact shoulder clocks her on the way out.
Yep.
And then they run into each other again like 2 or 3 times at like a random party. He's like part of an 80s band, and she sort of trolls him by asking for a terrible 80s song that he has to play, taking requests. And they start getting to know each other. They leave the party together. He walks her to her car. They say an awkward goodnight. They also sing a song in between there, so whatever. Like, again, it's a musical. They sing a song about it. And then they start, they in fact form a relationship, and start in fact dating. And I think that's about where we said the intro ends. So I thought it was okay. And yeah, this is going to be a huge bias. So here's my first caveat. I hate musicals. I dislike them. They're just not for me. I'll admit that. And while, yes, perhaps this wasn't like an all-out musical, like not every single, like there were just like straight up acting, like scenes, exchanges between characters that aren't sung. But it literally starts off with a musical number. And here's why I don't like musicals, or at least one of the reasons. We used to have this question on our old scale. It's completely immersion breaking because you're supposed to believe like you're in a real world situation, but then every single person, literally everyone in the car, gets out of the car and breaks into a song and dance number. And like it's so bizarre and like for me, a non-entertaining way. It's like the opposite of Lynchian. Sure, it's surreal, kind of, but it doesn't speak to me. I just think it's stupid. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So, I guess I'll judge it on the narratives, like, terms of that. Sure, I guess it was fine. Like Chris said, it's boy meets girl story in LA. Privileged people, like white people problems, trying to, like, make it in the industry, whether music or acting. So, it just didn't grab me. Maybe it's a soft zero, and again, my bias certainly is part of this, but it wasn't arresting, so I'm going to give it not much credit. What do you guys think?
I liked the beginning of the movie. I thought that, honestly, I thought I thought a lot of this movie was funny in, like, line-wise, but I thought the most conceptually realized humorous scene was the scene between Ryan Gosling and his sister in the very beginning of the movie. I thought that was great, and it was made to be a funny scene, and it worked out, I thought, really well.
Well, the pacing was great in that scene.
Right.
Well, yeah, it sets up the character perfectly.
Well, the thing I liked about it is, and I'm going to say, like, the introduction of the Freeway song was, like, my least favorite of the songs, but I really love the camera work, and I really love the dancing right there. It was great.
The choreography was
choreography
we'll speak
was
about
amazing.
That later,
but
sure, but
no, but I'm just
later.
speaking
I
to
will
the.
definitely
I'm
bring it up
speaking because it was important to, like, say that this is the only song that didn't grab me. But the thing I liked about the introduction is that they let you see what each other's Emma Stone's and Ryan Gosling's life were separately. So they'd run into each other and they'd meet but never, like, connect in that way. So it's kind of like, okay, there's a connection. Let's talk about her life. Oh, he storms past her. Let's talk about his life. I thought it was really, like, just narratively really well constructed. So I'm going to give it a very, very strong 1.
Yep, I'm also going to give it a 1.
Yeah, I'm definitely giving it a 1.
All right, so we got 3 1s and a 0.
Softer 0. I'm just saying it just wasn't arresting, and I'll expand more as we go on.
Fair enough. I'm sure we will talk about this. However, we're going to move on to the body, and Chris, give us a breakdown.
All right. The breakdown basically is this. It's them when they start dating, going about their lives. And this is like a whole honeymoon period where, she's also auditioning and then writes a play. She quits her job to write a play and do this thing. And, he's playing, whatever gigs he can and everything. And his dream is to build a jazz club and play, like, the kind of jazz he wants to. And hers is obviously to be an actress, which is he wants to kind of stay put and low key and do what he wants to do. And she kind of wants to embrace show business. So already you kind of know that they're going in separate directions, but you got this whole honeymoon period. And then she's on the phone with her mom and saying, like, I'm going to do this play. And, he overhears her tell her mom that, he wants to open up a jazz club, but he doesn't have any money or whatever. And he kind of takes it as, I better just take this gig that his, old partner, John Legend.
Played by John Legend. It's not
played
John
by
Legend.
John.
No,
I know.
It's just John Legend.
Yeah. We're just going to call him John Legend because I can't remember his name.
Johnny the
John
Legend.
What's his name? Key? Oh, Keith.
Key.
All right.
Key. It's a play on the piano.
That
motif.
would be really cool.
No.
But anyway, he signs up to as a professional. He's a member of Keith's touring band, and she didn't realize that it was going to be like a multi-year commitment where he was going to be touring home for a few months. So in a sense, she's home, kind of being where he wants to be, and he's out gallivanting where she wants to be, and it's like the first rift where you realize,
Sure.
She can't, again, they always give these hints that they're going in separate directions. And, he misses her play for a photo shoot, and, she goes back home. She gets a call back, and they go back to LA. She gets this part in this movie, and then, I think that's it. I mean, there's a lot of details to it, and I don't really want to go over every single detail to get bogged down in it.
They're all not that important.
But shut up.
Well, I mean,
no, I'm not downgrading it, but there's just
we can't go by Scott's word on this though.
I mean,
because
no,
he just doesn't like the
I'm
movie.
not saying I'm not
They
just
are and they
glossing
aren't,
over
but-
it because it's. I've been talking to Scott about like I haven't seen Fences and I haven't seen Moonlight, but I saw Kubo and in Hell or High Water, and both of them I thought were, how can I say this? It was something that there was a by the numbers story done well with certain, where the details really made it.
Sure.
And, it may have taken a couple turns you didn't expect, but those are two movies that could have been very average and they became very special. And I feel the same way about this one. It is a by the numbers musical for the most part. There's a couple little twists and everything is foreshadowed, but it's like quality wise, was it well done? Yes.
Foreshadowed, yes, my friend.
Yeah.
Yes.
You could see right from the beginning, they were kind of on different paths and they'd cross over. But yeah, I'm going to give it a very strong one because again, narratively, it's really well done. Even though it is literally a boy meets girl, they get together and then move on. It's the devil's in the details, as I've been saying.
I would say, but yeah, it's definitely in the details because it's not just boy meets girl. I mean, it is, yes,
but that's the overarching.
Yeah, if you want
That's
to
the framework.
yeah, but
Sure.
it's like as you said though, like in the details, it's the destination that kind of like makes it unique, and I think that's what enriches the story.
Maybe.
Scott's a little different to this.
There's so many.
Don't my looks off put you. Go ahead, Chris.
I mean, because a lot of this we're going to get to style, but there's so many different textures in so many different ways, and I think the story, just narratively speaking, it was a lot of slice of life stuff, but they were switching terms, being like, whose life? Are we at life on the road? Are we life at home? Are we life together where we're both poor and content to be so? And there's just a lot of little things that go into each one of those things. I'm not doing it much justice, but
All right. No,
It's so really, really good.
here's my analysis, and you just mentioned you brought up, Chris, that narratively. So that is at the end of the day, that's what I'm trying to view this as and score it as such. So my outright score for the body would probably be a 1 because at least there was investment in some kind of stakes. Or either I'm going to give credit here or I'm going to take away credit from a different question. So I think I've decided to give credit here and probably give it a solid 1. Yes, it followed their story, and yes, it was a simple framework of boy meets girl in LA, Hollywood, modern, trying to make it in showbiz, essentially.
Would it be?
I think, but I think where the body shined is really in the character development in this
Yes,
movie.
and that's pretty
And
much why
that was incredibly
But
strong.
also, may I also add that it's not it's not cliche. Like as much as we
It
want
is
to
and it
believe it
isn't.
is, but it does play on expectations, and it turns it a lot.
it definitely does.
Especially like with the Iran and like the 80s party that they did and everything
Yes,
like
no,
that.
I
Like,
get it.
We all of us. I mean, even that. Like, also, the first time Emma met, or first time Mia met Sebastian, like you wanted them to hook up and everything like that, but no, he just fucking shoulder checks her.
Sure.
And yeah, that's like
You're right. It's a
turn
twist.
on
It's
our
a subversion.
expectations. Yeah,
I get you.
it really is though. But that's it's not cliche. So it's like it kind of keeps it fresh in the sense that we don't know what to expect. Like for me, it kept me hanging on.
Listen, I'm gonna give it credit for sure. Like, yes,
I'm like
Keep me hanging
Sure.
on.
Thank you. They yes, you're right, Louis. I agree. They twisted some of the expectations to this like core narrative that you've seen done before. Don't get me wrong. And yes, I think it was handled pretty well, and especially like largely because they did at least 2 or 3 like things like that. So I am going to give it credit and give it a solid 1 for the body at least.
I'm gonna give the body a 1 as well. I'm gonna go to the scoring section of this, but like I'm gonna give the body a 1 as well because the character development was terrific throughout this, and it's done by like these little scenes where you learn more about each one of the characters in little ways, and you don't even kind of realize how much they've grown or like how much they've developed in this movie until a little bit later on, where it kind of like they make a point to like nail it home. And I think that the body does a very good job of doing that throughout. So I'm going to give it a 1.
Sure. I largely agree, like I said.
1? Yeah,
I'm definitely giving it a 1.
Yeah.
All right, 1's all around. Sounds good. And I am on to conclusion. So I guess we're going from the point where... So it's just...
She gets the job in Paris, and
Mia gets hired to be an actress in Paris.
It's after the dinner where they have the argument.
Mm-hmm.
They get into the fight. Then, what's his name? Sebastian comes back and like makes her go to this audition, which we probably should like. This is kind of the end of the body, but I'm going to mention it really quickly here. He's like, you have to go to this audition. Some talent scout found her, or not a talent scout, but like a
casting agent.
Yeah, casting agent found her, and she goes to the audition. She gets this job. It's in Paris, and they have like a conversation. I guess at the end of the body, or possibly the very beginning of the conclusion.
Is it in the park?
Where he says, "When you get this job," and she's like, "If I get this job," and when you get this job, blah blah blah. Blah. But he says, "When you get this job, I got my own thing going here. You have your thing going. You're gonna go to Paris, and you're gonna go do this movie." Cuts to winter again, right? So we've gone through all the seasons now. Goes back to winter, and then after winter, it says, you get the 5 years later thing.
Sure. Well, it's a fucking slow roll. Yeah,
which is a little bit of a twist.
Sure.
Like it's this is a long time has passed, and she comes back. It turns out that she is, I guess, married. I don't think they ever say that she's married, but she does have a kid
involved with someone else, with
another
a child.
guy.
Sure.
And they decide to go, or they're going to a premiere or something.
I gathered it was something like that. Yeah, they're meting like one of their other like contemporary like.
They decide not to go. They just go to get
couples,
dinner.
Yeah.
They go into L.A. They decide to go walk down the street. They end up going into a club. Turns out it's Seb's, which is what she told him to call his club, when they were dating.
Because his name's Ryan Gosling's name is Sebastian. Her name is Mia.
Sure.
Right. They go in. He sees her. Says it's really melancholy, welcome to the Sebs. And, ostensibly for everybody, but clearly it's just for her.
Sure.
And then he goes and plays a song on piano, and it has this really, strangely beautiful and super referential final just super cut of a bunch of different styles and types of cinematography and stuff like that is all referring to the life that the perfect life that they could have had together, right?
Fictional life.
Just the life they had.
This is
life they could have had.
In his song, this is their
Sure.
whole life together that they could have had and didn't. And it kind of goes up to the point where she has a kid with him, and eventually, and towards the end at that point,
It's basically a dream sequence, but very well done. Yeah. Sure.
right. And you just really need to watch this. I can't describe it to you. There are so many different references and different styles,
It's a montage.
cinematography and all this stuff. It is a montage, but it's
But
more
not
than
just
that.
It's
a
an alternate.
montage.
It's like an alternate history, like you
Yeah.
said. It's like what could have been.
Yeah.
But it all comes down to, again, at the end, obviously reality takes back over, and it's him playing the last few notes of the leitmotif that has been happening
Right.
throughout the movie.
I'm saying it was a recurring
The song
Yeah.
"City of Stars," and that's kind of it. Her husband, fiance, boyfriend, whatever the hell, says, "You want to stay for another song?" She says, "No, we should get out of here." They leave. She turns back for one last knowing glance at Ryan Gosling, and that's pretty much it. And that's the end of the movie. I thought it was a really strong conclusion. Just that the whole montage that goes on, while somewhat sappy, I guess,
Saccharine.
was, and Well, that's what I was gonna say. It is
though?
somewhat sappy. It is not saccharine to me.
No.
It doesn't
All right.
turn that corner for
Fine.
me.
I don't know.
It can't be sappy,
hairs.
man. There's
And-
no way it could be sappy.
But what it does do is it stays completely fresh the entire time. It gives you all these different styles. It gives you all these different like types of views of their life, and I really loved it. I had a really good experience of it.
I want to see it again because like they're doing this montage of what could have been, and all of a sudden he's playing the piano, and then the lights go down, and it spotlights on the horn player, the guy on the trumpet, who is playing at his club. So all of a sudden it's just, I thought for a moment, I'm like, oh, we're going to come back to reality, and they're in the club. And then as the camera pans around the trumpet player, it goes right back into the fantasy. And I'm trying to figure out, did that happen like between like what would have been the 5-year break where like, you know, after the horn solo, they come back and have the second part of their life?
I love that you mentioned that. I'm actually going to touch on that.
Okay, no, because this is one of the things I loved about the ending.
I'll touch
because
on it right now.
Yeah.
So if you notice you hear the same song over and over again.
yeah,
And so
Yes.
to tell, obviously you guys know, I've seen, this is pretty much the third time I've seen this movie, and the details that I've seen or I've heard and seen are phenomenal, because the song that you're talking about, as they're playing that, is throughout the whole movie. You hear xylophone, you hear it mariachi style,
you hear him whistling it.
you hear it jazz style, you hear it, hear it every way, and it's just phenomenal how the movie can turn us, or at least play the song over and over and keep it fresh every time. And
I would say that's the power of like a well done leitmotif, like any.
Yeah.
Sure, but I was gonna say maybe that's more style than like I know it's contained in the conclusion and all. Like it's hard to like how much credit should I give to each, you know, how much weight each way.
Well, again,
Although I do agree, to be fair, to be perfectly clear, I do think the conclusion was well done as well. I liked it.
Yeah.
The story ended as it should have, and not like, even if I thought the montage, mostly agree with you, Steve. I'll guess I'll give credit on this front because it should seem sappy on the surface, but because of like how it's used and how it relates to the story, then it actually isn't, I would say. I mean, I guess it wasn't like an uplifting. It's not like they get back together and live happily ever after. This was the happily ever after they could have lived, but aren't. So I will say I like that in stories generally. So I appreciate, like, I was wary that it might like actually do that instead, and I would have hated it, of course. So, since it didn't, and since it used those elements well, and maybe we'll speak more about the like as Louis was saying, like the sort of the constant reinvention of the sort of the arc song, I guess I want to call it,
the theme,
throughout. So yeah, I'll give it a solid 1 on that front.
This is we should have done this for the log line. This is like the birth of what's his name from Casablanca? Rick. This is the birth of Rick.
This is Rick's prequel,
like,
I guess.
Like this is how Rick became Rick. You know?
But it's going to be hard in a movie like this to not talk about, you know, style when describing stuff, which is
sure. I get it.
So I mean, that's why I'm trying to approach it from a narrative point of view, and like narratively, because I really want to talk. I could talk forever about the style of this movie. Narratively with the flashback, and then with the horn player, kind of brings you back to reality. And it's kind of like going over a hill in a roller coaster.
A hill of beans.
Yeah, and then you come back to reality at the end. I thought it was extremely well constructed, and it's definitely getting a strong 1 from me.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 1 as well.
Yeah, 1.
You're gonna give it a 1 too, Scott?
Yep.
The old 1 too?
Yep.
1 2.
You robo-dope.
All right. It's
Yes.
a robo-dope.
We'll speak about
Dope.
that.
I'm going to put that in my dialogue.
All right. Well, Lou, we're going to go on to themes.
Themes? All right. So, I'm going to take the very bold opinion and say this is a love movie.
What?
It's all about
I never
romance.
got that.
I did not get that out of
It's
this.
all
I
about
didn't get
romance.
that either, man.
But-
I'd say a high octane
All right.
car racing, you know.
I would say, but it's not the romance that we want. So I'd say this movie is a complete subversion.
Or maybe you're expecting, right? Like, or like audiences
everything that we
are
expect,
expecting.
everything that we expect throughout the movie is. I mean, sometimes we get fulfillment. Sometimes we do get exactly what we expect. But I'm not gonna get the dialogue yet.
All right.
There's the real good juice in there. But I'm gonna say, thematically though, it is a love movie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to say this. One thing that they make sure to tell us is that this is not Hollywood. This is La La Land.
I suppose.
So every single fucking moment, every single reality, I'm going to say it this way. The movie starts. I'm going to ask you all this because I made sure you all heard how the movie started. Do you remember the first sound of the movie? Anybody?
Wasn't it traffic?
Was it a car horn?
No. It was
no. It was a radio station flipping.
It was
Close.
Well, no,
It's
it was
close.
just static.
1812 was it
Almost.
static?
Almost.
I was gonna say I remember the first thing I remember was the 1812 overture.
It was a record scratching.
Oh,
It was a
shit.
record
Yeah,
scratch.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Sure.
And from there, that gives you the whole general idea of the whole movie.
Oh,
It's gonna
that's
be-
fucking
it's
brilliant.
just a track.
Oh wow, that's
And guess what? The first thing that one of the first things that you see is a woman in a yellow dress trying to stand out before everyone. And guess what you see every single time? The next person that you see in that dress is Mia's roommate.
Oh,
And
son of
then
a
Mia
bitch.
herself. And then not only it trickles down a whole way.
Yeah, because I was
Yellow
noticing.
is a huge thing. And guess what? Before that, you hear the record scratch. Sorry. You hear the record scratch. And then you get the cinemascope. Presented in cinemascope. You get the orchestra and everything playing. It's presented in cinemascope.
Mm-hmm.
It's not shot in cinemascope. Because guess what happens when you shoot in cinemascope? You get Rebel Without a Cause, and the film burns in the goddamn theater.
That is completely fucking Waldo-esque.
That's super deep.
That's-
Now, here's what I'm gonna say though. It was telling. It was a foreshadowing because when Emma Stone or Mia went to the movie theater, she stood in front of. Oh, actually, let me backtrack a little bit. When she met Ryan Gosling, Sebastian, as she was walking across the club, there was a portrait, and I think Steve and Chris or one of you guys mentioned it. The mural that she walked across was a movie theater. Like there was just people sitting there. I think one of you guys said one of them looked like Trump.
Oh yeah, true.
She walked into the club, and guess what? Like the same thing happened when she was looking for Ryan or Sebastian in the movie theater. But that's not what they're supposed to be.
All right.
Like her, no, for fact though,
I'm listening
like
to you.
she sits down. They have a wonderful moment. They have the perfect date, but the movie burns to hell because that's not where they're supposed to be.
All
And
right.
literally, that's like how the movie turns out to be. Like
Maybe.
it.
Yeah, well, yeah, I agree with you. There's like a lot of foreshadowing in this movie.
Yeah.
There's like but it's sprinkled throughout, and it's given proportionally really well. So it's like you're getting the sense like not to get your hopes up for this romance, but at the same time, it doesn't take away from your enjoyment of it because I guess if they didn't have those things in there, when it came to the end and they moved on, everybody would be like suicidal.
Maybe,
Yeah.
but I do like. All right, so perhaps that's because you've seen this movie a couple of times, Louis. Like
Yeah,
you can
definitely.
like put that together. Like I certainly didn't on this viewing, but I suppose like I believe you that's there. It's just that I didn't seem to notice it as much, perhaps because of that. But on top of that, like I guess I want to say is like what is the movie trying to say about that in general? And if I think it's trying to say anything at all, do I like think it's an effective message? This is a hard one to cut up.
I got it. All
right, well, hold on. I'm trying to. All right, so how about I'm trying to think it out still. So you guys tell me what you think.
Same theme as The Outsiders. Nothing gold can last.
All right.
That's it.
Is that all you wanted to
That's
say?
what it is.
I was actually
Well,
gonna.
that's all you had to say, apparently. Go ahead, Chris.
No, I was actually gonna say, to thine own self be true, because that's what happens. Is they realize that they're not going to be happy unless they're doing what they want to do. But doing what they want to do is going to be near impossible given where they
Sure.
are.
They're mutually exclusive. I get it.
Well, here's the thing. It's not that they're not going to be happy. It's that this is La La Land. Like, you need to choose between that or being with someone else.
Yeah, well, it's sometimes
It's all about sacrifice, really.
sometimes like the things that you love are at odds with other things that you love, like or
Yeah.
making yourself happy, right?
And
And
yeah.
like I think that's a big
But
one.
that's what I'm saying. And like, to thine own self be true.
Sure.
It's just like that. At the end of the day, they have to pursue their dreams, and it's kind of like they choose themselves over themselves as a partner.
I guess. And like,
See, that's the thing. Like, is it pursuing their dreams? It is pursuing their dreams. Yes. But it kind of diminishes the sacrifice, pseudo-sacrifice.
I get it.
It's one thing, though. Like, they're both, at the end of the movie, they're both kind of happy
Mm-hmm.
with what they've
Right.
chosen. Like,
and their own
there's not-
situation.
yeah,
Sure.
Yeah, because that's
all
That's-
shade and fraud, though. Like
And-
like
I guess. Is it?
I say, like, yeah,
they're
like,
they're happy, but they're also very
as I
sad.
said, like, dialogue is going to be a huge factor with this.
Fair
So
enough.
I'm trying to like
Okay.
neuter myself a little bit.
So this is like, I'm going to channel Steve-O to start off with, and then Janie Manzer, who is not on this episode. So like, I don't know where else to mention this, so I guess I'll mention it here. And this is something, like, the entire time watching this movie, I thought of something we said about Nocturnal Animals, which we reviewed earlier this season. It's that, like, I can't really be invested in the problems and relationship issues of two beautiful, attractive Hollywood socialites, essentially. I know that's not, like, it's hard to, like, remove that from the film itself. I don't know how to describe it or else to mention it, but just that sort of, like, was nagging at me the whole time I was watching this film, even though as I spoke about in the body in conclusion just now, like, yeah, narratively, I liked it, but also at the same time, I sort of didn't like it because that's sort of what I saw in it. So it's really hard to cut this one up for me.
Well, the thing is, it's just like you go into it and it's like you said, you're not really fond of musicals.
Yeah, but regardless of all that.
But the thing is, there's a certain suspension of disbelief that you can give something. Like, I really like musicals when they're
Sure,
good.
right.
Otherwise, it's not really anything I really pursue. But when you go into a musical, there's a certain suspension of disbelief you have to
it's
go.
nothing to do with musicals. If all musical elements were removed from this film and it was just a plot about that, I still don't know if I would care so much, at least thematically, because it's like, yeah, life sucks. So, yeah, sometimes you have to sacrifice, you have to follow your dream or do something else. Like, you can't do both at once. I get that, but it's sort of like wrapped in so many frills. But I also, like, generally, I would say I like that theme. Like, I get it. Life is harsh. La La Land does not actually exist. I get that, Louis. Like, I like that.
Do you get it though?
I believe I do.
I don't
That's
know,
why
man,
I'm saying it's hard for me to cut it up. Like, I'm still deciding in my mind how much weight to give one over the other.
All of this is illusory. Like, yes.
Yeah, yes. I
yeah,
understand.
All of this is made up.
Yeah. Check out our Neophytes episode about that. But I guess I will, at the end of the day, perhaps give it more credit than not if I take it to be like the film, like, intentionally encapsulate all these things, which I think it did. Like, I think it's intelligent enough to know that it was, touching upon all those things. So
I do like the idea.
I guess
like,
I'll give it a begrudging, soft, solid one.
As you just mentioned, Lou, something that you just touched off. This entire illusory dream of what La La Land should be, right?
Yeah,
like the whole ending is what that is.
Sure.
But as far as themes go, I'm going to give it a 1.
Yeah.
I think that they did a good job touching on a lot of interesting ideas, and that's it. So
I'm giving it a 1, definitely. So
Yeah, one.
all right. So we're going to move on to antagonist with Scotty.
all right.
My favorite. I guess we just sort of covered a lot of it. Like, yeah. What?
I don't know about it.
Come on.
I have no idea about that.
Come on.
It's your perception, like your dreams versus like coming up against the harsh reality of how life actually works. Sure, they would like to have a life together, and you're even shown like what it would be like, but they're not going to have that
Right.
It is not how this is not how life shakes down. So that, of course, to me is always going to be effective, even though, I want to sort of hate on this movie for other reasons. I can't really it's unfair for me to do that in this case, and I admit that, so I'm not going to do it. And and I guess as Louis just said, it's the La La Land mentality versus like the actual reality of your situation. Whether or not you think this is feasible versus like how life is, what life gives to you. In fact, make the best of what you can. So I guess I'll say that I don't think there's only like one like personified antagonist, or maybe like the Hollywood system. I could like sort of throw that into sort of a half bullshit kind of answer.
Yeah, but
it's really not that, of course. I think it is what I just said, and if you guys have anything else or different, go ahead.
I was going to say their dreams are their antagonists.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, I'm waiting for Scott to be like, it's fate. It's like man against this. I was waiting for when
Yeah, the universe. Yeah, that's universe. Always going to be the case. Like, I don't know what to tell you, but.
No, but yeah, I was just going to say it's not bad or good. It is what it is, but it's like, to me, their dreams were the antagonist. And like I always say in the other podcasts, an antagonist doesn't necessarily have to be a villain.
Sure.
So
the shattering of your own illusions, I suppose, is going to be more effective.
Although I will say this, I thought there was more optimism in this movie than pessimism. Like,
oh no,
there was nothing. There was nothing
I agree with that
I
too.
felt that they were really antagonized by throughout. Like, there were their moments of doubt, but nothing was like all that bad for them. Like, I didn't feel like they were down and out at any point. Any of the characters in this. I am going to say that. For the next question, I think that there probably is a dual protagonist. But as far as antagonist goes, I'm not convinced that there was a very good one.
Yeah.
So, I don't know about you guys.
I would say I'm not upset. That there wasn't.
It's not like a fault of the movie.
Antagonists, it's because I felt that the movie moved at a great pace.
Mm-hmm.
That I didn't seek an antagonist to try to justify me watching this and root for the protagonist, pretty much.
Right.
Because honestly, the antagonist is the protagonist. Like it gets to the point where they become their own obstacle. So
yeah.
I felt like
I'll agree with that.
I felt like if you wanted to talk about an antagonist, it was like a moving target this entire movie, and like that's it didn't really. There's nothing that I think is a stirring antagonist in this. So I'm probably going to give this a 0. I don't know about you guys.
I'd be comfortable giving it a 0 actually. But give me a second.
All right.
I'm giving it a 1 because I'm going to stick with my own, like their dreams. I mean, and that's not a negative thing. It's just like they want something so bad, and how bad are you willing to sacrifice it? So it's, it's not, like I said, it is what it is. And, so that's why I'm picking it.
Yeah, so I know we said this again on just clicking on Undercast, that it's not a fault of the movie per se if there is almost like antagonist is removed from it.
Right.
But I'm going to side mostly with Chris in that, like being confronted with the limitations of your own abilities and dreams and the and reality pushing back against you, that's going to be effective always. So I'll give it a 1.
Antagonist for you.
Yeah.
All right. Lou, you're a holdout.
I don't know. I gotta say 0, man. Like it's.
Yeah, I know you don't want to, but it's just because of the nature of it. I get it.
How I feel, man.
Hey, man.
It's not.
I hear you.
Don't feel bad.
Just can't.
You're with me. Come to the dark side.
That's all right. That's fine.
Cool.
I'm here.
I'm here. I'm hanging out with you.
Live in La La Land.
It's me, you, and Satan.
But this is me, you, and Antigone.
All right. So we're gonna move on to protagonist, and Chris, get us kicked off here.
There are 2 protagonists. It is Mia and Sebastian. And I think the movie did a really great job, between their little literal and figurative little run-ins or bump-ins. And I think they developed both characters well. They both gave you a real good peek into their life, which means that like when the body happened, what each one of their dreams meant to them. You know how much they meant to each other. It's, I thought they were both extremely effective protagonists in a movie like this. You could not have one because you really needed to get, into who these people were. So, I'm definitely giving it a 1.
Sure. They
definitely one.
they had a balance. Like, they needed to do that. You're right. It's a 50-50 split. And I think Ryan Gosling and Emma, of course, did a great job. And you're right, Chris. They devoted enough time to each of them as separate characters, and when it merged together, and then when they were separated again. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing I can say against them as protagonists and as portrayed by the actors. I have to give them all the credit that they're due.
I completely agree with that. They had very strong individual lives, and they had a very strong relationship throughout this movie. They first of all, both actors did a really good job, and I've had my, I kind of like Emma Stone up until this movie. I thought she actually really came into her own on this movie because a lot of people gave her such huge praise for when she was in Birdman, which I thought she was probably the weakest actor.
Episode.
Yeah, I thought she was probably the weakest actor in Birdman, but in this movie she had a starring role and she filled it. She filled out the world amazingly.
I will say one more thing, maybe just because of style, but because her character is an actress, like a wannabe, like aspiring actress, I think it was quite well done when she was called in for casting. Like, she had to play like not as good of an actress as she actually is when she was like reading for parts and stuff. So I thought it was pretty nice.
She did a great job.
And she did a great job at that. Yeah,
pretty meta. Yeah.
And that's so. Speaking of Birdman, I thought she did a very good like parallel to Ed Norton's character in Birdman, in that he did the same thing in that movie.
Sure. No, I mean, I just wanted to point that out, but otherwise, I think of him a very strong one.
I agree. Very, very strong. I thought both of these actors did a really good job. Gosling especially did an amazing job, and Emma Stone, this is her starring role where she really
you think it's her breakout role?
She convinced me that she is, an A-list actor in this movie.
She's phenomenal. Both of them.
So,
one for me.
All right, so that's ones all around, I believe.
Yep.
It's going to go on to supporting with me. And honestly, I'm not a big fan of any of the supporting characters in this. I don't really... They're not memorable.
There are no supporting
They're
characters.
not memorable. I mean, there are. There's John Legend. There's
John Legend.
What's his face?
I mean, all right, yeah.
The other guy that's a big actor. I forget what his damn name is.
There's one.
Yeah.
J.K. Simmons.
J.K. Simmons.
Sean
Patrick Flannery.
That's not really supporting, though.
There's his sister. I mean, they're all supporting actors,
but they have no name.
But I don't care about any of them.
They have no name, though.
I guess.
But
honestly, the important thing in this movie is the two protagonists.
I say that. Yeah, that's exactly why.
See, all the supporting characters are kind of like the currents that keep moving these characters. So, I'm going to say, again, going narratively, all the supporting characters, I do like John Legend's character. I do like his sister and J.K. Simmons. But as terms of supporting characters, they really kept the flow of these two characters. The movie never forgot that it was these two characters you're focusing on. So all the supporting characters were more in service to them and not so much their own characters.
Sure, I agree with that. Or in the same sense that we sometimes agree and just basically did just before here, that it's not a fault of the film that the supporting characters aren't they're not the important part of it. They're just sort of there as I don't mean this as an insult. They're just window dressing essentially.
Yeah.
They orbit the main characters, but we're focusing on the main characters. So that's what that's what it's focused on, and that's what you follow their lives, whether separately, or when they're together, and so forth. So, while yes, the secondary characters rounded out that aspect, they're not the focal point, nor should they ever be. It's just that Sebastian has a sister and Emma or Mia has her roommates, but those characters aren't important. What is important are these two characters, even though those friends and family and so forth are part of their lives and his boss, whatever.
Right.
But the point of them is not to be there. So again, no fault of the movie, but I'm going to give it a 0 just because that isn't the point of it.
Yeah, I don't take anything away from the movie for these characters not being strong, but they're just not strong.
Exactly,
characters.
They didn't do a bad job.
Give it a 0.
But
yeah, it's none of these characters really grabbed me.
Exactly.
Nobody had like a breakout supporting role like you'll see from time to time. That it's just.
Yeah,
it's just they were there. They had to be there, so they were there.
Exactly.
I'm
going to
props, but I think they're effective props.
Sure,
I'm definitely going to give it a 1 because I just love all the little textures and so forth. And as I said before about Kubo and Hell or High Water, it was all the little textures that made something that could have been mundane into something really good. And with this one, like I said, all the supporting characters were to service of the main characters, but I thought they were all interesting in their own right, even if you didn't really like have an emotional investment to them.
Now, actually, I'm going to play devil's advocate to myself and ourselves. Would you count the music and or like City of Lights itself as a supporting character?
Oh, fucking hell yeah.
Because this is a musical. See, that's what I was debating, but I think I'm going to put all the credit in the world to style.
Style, yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I come down on. But I just want to throw that out there just to derail us a bit.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's usually something. It's just like I consider the music.
Yeah, because of the nature of the film is all I'm saying. But
it sounds like so far
in this instance,
Scott and I are giving it zeros.
Yeah.
Right? Chris, you're giving it 1. We've not heard from Lou yet on the supporting characters issue. What do you think?
Supporting character, though. Were you saying, Chris, if the music might be?
Yeah, I'd consider the music a
I think it's fair
character.
to count it, but I'm not going to. I'm going to count it in style instead.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't think I could. I'd have to give it a 0. Like supporting character wise, I can't.
I would say
I can't.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I would say I could see that argument if the music had a personality of its own, but I felt throughout this movie that the music was
in support of them.
Well, it was centered around me and Sebastian for
something
me.
that grew out of them. It was a part of their characters.
Sure.
It wasn't its own character.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I like that assessment. Yeah.
Like Taxi Driver, New York City was its own character, right? It was very outside of Travis Bickle.
Yeah.
But in this movie, the music, even the city to a degree, was part of them.
Built around them. Sure. Yeah. I agree. I'm just saying one could argue that.
So, like, to me, that's a separate thing.
Yeah. I get you. I'm just
so
saying.
What do you think, Lou? What's your score on that? Supporting.
I still think 0.
I think it's leaning towards a 0.
I really want to do 1, but
again, it's almost like by omission. Like, yeah, I get it.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it sucks, but that's the reality.
That's the reality.
Yeah,
sure.
It's reality.
Sure.
All right. So we are on to dialogue. And Lou, I believe you requested this one.
He's been chomping at the bit.
So, all right, I'm gonna just read a few quotes from the movie, and obviously, I'm not gonna sing if it was from a song, but I just want to get a general idea what you guys think. So here's the first quote: "Is this the start of something wonderful, or one more dream that I cannot make true?"
Mm-hmm.
I think about the day I left him at the Greyhound station west of Santa Fe. And there's also one of an actor saying, "We can go to the party and make fun of the Hollywood cliches."
I didn't catch that line, actually.
Yeah. I did.
So
the first two I did. That one I did not.
But literally, all right. So the first song, and I was gonna pull up the whole, like 2 lyrics of it, but the first one literally is the song. I don't know what the hell it's called now, but that introduces us to La La Land.
Sure.
Pretty much,
opening song.
It tells us the story of the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's a girl that left a small town, leaving a guy that she fell in love with, and left him back because she wanted to succeed in life.
Yeah.
And the guy, it's pretty much like a Journey song. So like the guy also
just a small town girl.
Yeah. So the guy
living
singing,
in a lonely world.
the guy singing is listening to his songs across the state, wants to make it big, and they tell him you're not good enough. So he just plays everywhere. And guess what? That's exactly what we get.
Again, that's
sure. But that's just the first song.
Sure.
It is. This movie does do a good job of foreshadowing. I will give you that. However, when I talk about dialogue in this movie, I'm going to talk about not song lyrics, which perhaps people would be expecting, but I thought that the dialogue was really good.
Oh yeah,
was really good. The specifically Gosling's lines were very he had a very good sense of humor. He had a very good feel for his character.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Emma Stone had I feel like they played kind of like these almost opposite characters, right? So Gosling was like this funny character who was depressed, and Emma Stone was like this depressing character who was optimistic, right? Like she had a lot of depressing lines, and like she had the very heavy, serious dialogue, but but her character I felt like was more optimistic than his was. He was very sarcastic. She kind of talked about life as she saw it and like kind of laid it all out there, which I really loved. I thought that this movie did a good job with the script and with the dialogue in that regard. I
agree with most of that. So again, I was trying to remove my bias and my distaste for musicals in general. But like again, like the non-musical scenes, like when they're just acting to each other and around them, yeah, it was very well done. I agree with that, Steve-O, for sure. And yes, I thought some of the like, if I may make a joke here, I almost sometimes in some scenes, especially like when Ryan Gosling shoulders past her and like a couple other ones, I thought like in my mind he's the same character from Drive. That's just my own private joke. But nevertheless, I agree that when they were speaking to each other and again and others around them without breaking into song, I thought, yeah, it was pretty realistic. Did I cringe at anything? No. I thought it was, some of it was snappy and like they were trading insults. Not insults, just like it's kind of zingers, kind of like just, giving it to each other like back and forth. And especially in the argument scene in the apartment, that was actually a quite tense, a well done like dramatic scene. So yeah, I'll give it more credit, at least on the non-musical numbers, because I thought it was very well acted as a drama when the dramatic scenes were happening, and comedic touches also were present here and there. So, yeah, I agree.
I'm going to give it a 1. I mean, if for nothing else, then the J.K. Simmons scene with because that was, I mean, that was it was a lot of the dialogue was pacing the way it the rhythm of the scene, but I really liked the way they played off each other, and the little blurbs they said. It was good.
Yeah, I believe their characters are very realistic, and that's some of the high praise I can say in terms of dialogue as well within that.
So I'm gonna
realistic in insofar as a musical can be realistic.
Sure, but I'm saying, again, removing the musical aspect.
Is it a musical though?
It is a musical.
It is a musical.
Yeah. Yes. You can't just say that.
But like what? Like
you can't just say it like
is
that.
it like Grease musical though? It's not Grease musical.
No,
it's
still
a musical.
But
know the sound of music,
yeah,
but they break
but,
into
I mean, it comes out and tells you it's a musical.
Has a score, like everything is musical. I mean, in that sense, yes.
No, and it's not just because it has a score. It's because they break into song and dance at parts of the movie.
It was like 4 times.
You're right. It's not as often as most musicals, but
yes.
But I would say though,
it's sort of a weird hybrid.
But like, are we? Because what was it?
I'm going to say we're in style right now.
Yeah, I'm going to say that.
I'll say like the last hour.
I'm going to say we're in style right now.
Okay.
All right. What dialogue? Everybody giving
last
it a
hour,
1?
there was no dance song number or anything like that, really.
Except for all of the entire song and dance that happened at the end of the movie, with the entire last part of it. There was dancing.
Yeah.
Except for that,
probably the most important part of the movie.
So I mean,
but it's not like it's not like the first scene.
It's not like a straight up musical that you're used to. No.
Yeah, it's not West Side Story or anything like that.
This movie definitely puts a spin on a musical, which I actually appreciate. I really like that. But anyway, Scott, we've already broken into style, but this is your category, so go ahead.
So again, like I'll talk about the aspects I enjoyed in removing the musical things that we were sort of like devolving into just now. At cinematography wise, yes, it was fucking awesome. Like it was
phenomenal.
It was very well done, shot, blocked, like the lighting, everything about every shot looked great, no matter whether or not it was a musical or not. And yes, begrudgingly, the choreography of the dance and so forth was very excellent as well, and I'll give them credit on that. But yeah, I'm just saying, just filmatically, it looked awesome, and many of the shots were very impressive. So I have to give it all full credit on that front, and you guys can talk about the soundtrack and other things and so forth. But just for that very reason, I think this movie deserves a 1, whether or not whatever my feelings are, outside of that.
I'm going to give it a 1, and aside from the music, I agree with everything Scott said about the choreography and the camera movement. I'm also going to say the use of color was fantastic.
Yeah, I can include that
amazing.
into what I said. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure, agreed.
That CinemaScope though, that was like a CinemaScope style. Yeah,
great
like,
fonts
exactly,
used.
Yeah,
sure,
exactly what they tried to use.
I will say that. I mean, I just said that jokingly, but seriously, I'm not kidding at all. The choice of typeface and like
it fit perfectly. I agree.
And you know how they
is that Art Deco from the 20s?
Kind of. Yeah.
It's someone has that
the font,
feel, right?
Yeah.
It's reminiscent of that, Chris. Yeah, I would say.
It's almost Tarantino-esque in its use of like old school,
kind of, yeah.
like, you know,
tropes.
May I cut in real quick? Can I go back to dialogue? Just 1 second.
Sure.
So in the first song, literally, it says, "We'd sink into our seats, red as they dim out the lights. A technicolor world made out of music and machine. It called me to be on the screen and live inside each seat."
Yeah, so the songs,
Brilliant.
the songs are very meta.
Yeah, very meta.
I get you.
Yeah.
This is like.
But that's what a musical is.
Yeah,
That's what a musical is, though.
Well,
Like
sometimes.
a good musical will do that. Like, you know,
lampshaded, essentially.
Yeah, of
Sure.
course, it says exactly what it's going to do right from the beginning, right from the outset. That goes back to the days of like opera and
All right.
old school stuff like
I mean,
that.
No, the lyrics are very self-aware. They definitely
Sure.
are.
So we'll give it credit there as well.
But as far as style goes,
I'm giving it a 1, a strong
I'm
1.
giving
in
it a
fact.
1.
for everything you guys mentioned, choreography, color, I thought the music was terrific. Not just the musical parts of it,
Right.
like the
actual
genre
score.
musical parts of it, but I'm not even talking about the score. I'm talking about the soundtrack. Really, like you know, like they break in with this like weird version of I'm losing my mind.
A famous song.
Not Iran, because they did a version of Iran, which is also good.
Take on me.
Take on me. Yeah, they go on this
Yeah,
weird
Take On Me.
version of Take on Me, and like they have other like I felt like they riffed off of a bunch of other songs throughout, and like started to play them, and then like they went to something else or whatever. But the music was terrific, I thought. I will say, Scott, as you mentioned earlier, some of the musical numbers where they just start singing for no reason, because this wasn't really a like super strict musical.
Capital
they weren't
M
singing the whole
musical.
time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like it kind of felt weird when they went into
I'm
a
just
musical
saying,
number or
it's
something like
jarring and immersion breaking, but that's all.
that. But what I do want to mention that no one else has mentioned yet is I thought that this movie did a great job with the humor.
Yeah, agreed.
Both
Absolutely.
physical
Sure.
and script wise. I thought that there was a lot of funny stuff that happened. In fact, I caught myself like just, you know, having a quick laugh every once in a while,
Sure.
things like that. So I thought the style was pretty damn good, pretty damn on the nose, and normally I say on the nose in a bad way, but this is a good way. Like it did a very good job.
It was on
of that.
point, we'll say.
Yeah. Yes. That's a better way to say
All
it.
right.
So has everybody had their say on style?
Yep,
I'm good
1.
with my
All
1.
right,
Yeah,
one's
one.
all around.
Yeah.
All right, and we're going to go to recommendation with Chris.
If you do not like musicals, if you do not like jazz, this is a musical and there's a lot of jazz in it. Otherwise, I recommend it. If you, like I said, what you see in the coming attractions is exactly what the movie's more than that. But again, if you don't like singing and dancing, and if you're not a fan of jazz, I wouldn't recommend it to you. Everybody else, I'd strongly recommend this.
Now here's where I'm gonna be my harshness, I suppose. I do like jazz, but I don't like musicals. So, and I've invented my own scale to this question. It is, would I see this movie again? No, I wouldn't. Is it a bad film? No. It just, again, admittedly, not for me. So it's almost like, I'll probably say this on our Oscar wrap up, but it's like the Brooklyn of this year for me. It's just not for me, even though we just said it was a pretty good film. I just personally, like, I'm gonna forget about this film, or at least not think about it after this. But while I was watching it, yeah, it was fine. But would I recommend? This is a hard one for me because I personally wouldn't. But it is not a bad film. In fact, it is quite good. It's just that it's not the genre and so forth for me generally. So I mean, defaultly, I'll give it a soft 0.
Okay.
Just because of that, admittedly, and you know, with my bias being a part of it.
Right.
So that's all.
It's on me.
Yep.
All right. Recommendation wise, I do not like jazz, but this movie
But now you love it.
You're such a Mia.
Now you love it.
This movie made me like. Call me Mia. I don't give a fuck.
Do you like Kenny G?
Yeah, I'm trying to meta.
Shut your mouth.
When she's just like, what about Kenny G? I'm
Guess
like,
what? I like this jazz.
You like this jazz?
And you know what?
You know, I sort
Is
of.
this a good movie?
I sort of like them
I
all.
don't give a shit what anybody says. Is this a good movie? But it's not for everybody.
Yeah,
Right.
that's all I'm saying.
Fact of the matter is, it's not for everybody.
If I saw this and knowing Scott doesn't like musicals, Scott
By the way,
would be like,
it's-
I would
for
not
me-
recommend it to Scott.
For me, honestly, it's not necessarily a musical. It has it communicates a beautiful story with music.
I like that description.
And just go with the ride, man. Like that's all it is, really. Isn't that what every movie is?
Sure, but I want to go on a different ride.
So you're saying check it out?
Yeah, check it out. One, I'll give you one.
I'm on your side with this one, Lou. I think that this is a movie that, as Chris said earlier, if you don't like musicals or jazz or feeling good about anything or feeling bad about anything,
Well, I definitely don't like feeling good about
if
it.
you don't like feeling good about anything for the middle parts of the movie, you don't like feeling bad about things at the end of the movie, then don't watch it. But honestly, I think there is something that pretty much anybody can enjoy in this movie. I know there are going to be people that don't like it. I would say if I recommend this to 10 people, 8 or 9 of them will like it. Therefore, I gotta say I have to go with a recommendation on this. So I'm gonna give that a 1.
All right, that's fair.
One for me, yeah.
And that's gonna bring the scoring to a close here.
Oh, is it?
We're gonna start off with our highest score, Chris, 10. Myself and Lou both gave this an 8, and curmudgeonly old Scott taking over for Ian tonight,
Channeling Ian.
is going to give it a 7.
Sure.
So
Wow. That's a higher
overall,
score than I thought we were going to give it.
So 8.
overall, it's an 8.25, which I think is a fairly good
I
score,
absolutely think so.
especially
That is
for a movie that
totally
might
fair,
that is very favored to win the Oscar this year.
See, that's
Although
what
I think Moonlight might have taken its place.
That's
but
what I wanted to bring up because this.
man. I don't think it will be Moonlight.
we'll see.
No, actually, I'm sorry. I think this will probably be Moonlight.
All right.
Pretty sure.
It probably will, but it should. See, that's my issue with it. It has so many nominations, right? It's 14 or whatever. Like, it's nominated for so many things. I think it tied the record, if not broke it or whatever.
I'm gonna call it this way. This is gonna win for either best song or best.
It's
Screenplay.
definitely going to win
Sure.
for best
It'll
song.
ring
Come on,
for
Best
let's-
adapted is gonna go to Moonlight.
Fine.
I bet best
Well,
adapted is
we're
going
gonna
to
have an
Moonlight.
Oscar wrap up. All I'm saying is that at this point, I resent the fact that this almost certainly has the momentum in going to win, but I don't think it's even the third best Oscar nom film I've seen this season.
I would agree with you. I like the 3 movies that you mentioned earlier: Fences, Moonlight, and
Hell or High Water.
Hell or High Water. I think are all better
Yes.
than this, or I like them better. Whether I think they're better movies, I think this is probably.
I think they are outright better films. I'm going to say that right now.
I think this is probably in the running
Wow, this one's
for
pretty ambitious, man.
at least for at least for what it tried to do.
Sure, I guess.
How many how much film history this
Right.
referenced along with doing it right and like doing all that stuff. Like there's a lot of technical things that went right in this movie.
Sure, and that's all
but-
fine, but
That's
all, yeah.
that's a conversation
We'll discuss-
for the Academy.
we'll discuss more on our pre-cast. So
and
colors, man, the colors.
that's gonna wrap it up for us
I
though.
wish I was so drunk because I made a fool of myself.
We're still on, Lou.
I can.
Anyway,
we're gonna cut that.
you guys have a good night.
I'm still having a good
For myself, Steve-O, I've been joined by Lou Duran,
Have a good night.
Chris Morgan,
I don't think I'm going to edit that out, Lou.
It's totally fine.
and Scott Thurlow.
And I've long ago left La La Land. Good night.
Editing and engineering by Christopher Morgan. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates.